Easy.
No honor among thieves.
30 creepy discoveries of the Wild West that terrified the world. Did you know that in the Wild West, entire towns vanished overnight, leaving behind eerie ghost towns? Or that miners stumbled upon bizarre skeletons that defied explanation? What other spine-chilling secrets did the Old West hide beneath its rugged landscape? Number 30. The Wild West's obsession with chewing tobacco and spitting. The widespread obsession with chewing tobacco and the inevitable habit of spitting. Imagine walking through a dusty frontier town where almost everyone is chewing tobacco to combat the dryness of the arid environment. It sounds like a practical solution, right? But this habit came with a pretty nasty side effect: constant spitting. Public places, from saloons to general stores, were equipped with spittoons to manage the mess. However, these receptacles didn't catch everything. Floors often ended up stained with tobacco juice, creating a gross and unsanitary environment. This wasn't just a cosmetic issue, it was a serious health concern. The spit-covered floors became breeding grounds for germs, contributing to the spread of diseases like tuberculosis and pneumonia. Establishments had no choice but to deal with the mess. Despite the presence of spittoons, many people still spat directly on the floor, missing their target more often than not. This led to the creation of laws in some areas aimed at curbing the habit of spitting in public due to its significant role in spreading diseases. But breaking this deeply ingrained habit proved to be a real challenge for many. The spitting problem highlighted the public health challenges of the time and the need for legal interventions to address these issues. Number 29. Communal towels used to wipe off beer foam. Think of it like this: a lively, bustling bar where patrons are enjoying their drinks. As they sip their frothy beers, they need a way to wipe the foam from their faces. Enter the communal towel. These towels, often hanging from hooks along the bar, were used by everyone to clean up after taking a swig. Sounds convenient, right? Well, not so much when you consider the hygiene aspect. These communal towels quickly became soaked with saliva, beer, and who knows what else. Rarely, if ever, washed, they turned into perfect breeding grounds for bacteria. Countless patrons used these towels, spreading germs and illness with every wipe. It's no wonder saloons became hot spots for infections. People back then didn't understand the health risks as we do now, so they continued using these towels, making the problem worse. This unsanitary practice was just one example of the broader challenges of maintaining cleanliness in the Wild West. With limited knowledge of hygiene and a lack of proper sanitation facilities, practices like this were all too common, contributing to the spread of diseases and making places like saloons particularly risky for health. Number 28. Spitting was so prevalent it had to be outlawed. Spitting wasn't just a minor nuisance in the Wild West, it was so prevalent that it had to be outlawed in some areas. Men in saloons often chewed tobacco and spat on the floor, which was usually covered with sawdust to soak up the tobacco juice. But this sawdust didn't absorb the juice. It also became a breeding ground for germs, leading to respiratory diseases. The health risks posed by excessive spitting were significant, prompting some towns to enact laws banning the habit. Offenders faced hefty fines if caught spitting in public. Despite these laws and the presence of spittoons, many people still missed the mark, continuing to spit on the floor and creating unsanitary conditions. This practice wasn't just gross, it was dangerous, spreading diseases like tuberculosis. The persistence of spitting, despite legal interventions, highlighted the public health challenges of the Wild West. It wasn't easy to change such a deeply ingrained behavior, and the health implications were serious. These efforts to curb spitting reflect a time when communities had to grapple with maintaining public health in an era of limited medical knowledge and infrastructure. Number 27. Outhouses were home to odors and bugs. Outhouses were notorious for their unbearable odors and bug infestations. These structures quickly became contaminated and incredibly unsanitary. Lime was often sprinkled inside to try and mask the stench, but it only did so much. The smell was still pretty overwhelming. Flies attracted by the waste would swarm the outhouse, spreading germs and diseases wherever they landed. And as if that wasn't bad enough, black widow spiders were a common and dangerous presence, lurking in the dark corners of these makeshift bathrooms. Using an outhouse was a dreadful experience. People would often hold their breath, trying to minimize the discomfort from the odors and bugs. Despite efforts to keep these outhouses clean, the lack of proper sanitation made them a constant challenge. It wasn't just about the smell and the bugs, it was also a significant health concern. The combination of filth and insects turned outhouses into breeding grounds for disease, making them a notorious part of daily life on the frontier. Number 26. Beds could be full of seam squirrels. Beds in the Wild West were often made of straw and hay, providing a perfect breeding ground for lice, commonly called seam squirrels. These materials, rarely changed, allowed pests to thrive, causing constant irritation and discomfort. The bites from lice led to restless nights and skin irritation. Flies and mosquitoes were also common intruders, turning sleep into a battle against bugs. The lack of proper hygiene and clean bedding made getting a good night's sleep challenging. People often went weeks or months without changing their bedding, exacerbating the problem. The prevalence of pests in bedding highlighted the broader challenges of maintaining cleanliness and comfort in the harsh conditions of the Wild West. Number 25. Clean water was a real challenge. Finding clean water was a significant challenge in the Wild West, with many water sources contaminated by upstream outhouses and livestock. Stagnant water attracted flies, making it even less desirable. Rainwater collection was common, but dust and contaminants often tainted it. Personal hygiene suffered as settlers frequently avoided regular showers and baths due to the scarcity of water. Beliefs that frequent washing could harm health further discouraged bathing. Cowboys often wore the same dusty clothes for days, leading to fungal infections. The lack of adequate water infrastructure made maintaining basic hygiene nearly impossible, highlighting the difficulties of frontier life where clean water was as precious as gold. Number 24. Soap was made from animal fat or plants. Soap was a luxury in the Wild West, with people using creative methods for hygiene. Some used soapweed from the yucca plant, while others made soap from animal fat mixed with lye and water. This homemade soap was harsh on the skin, leaving it dry and irritated. Cleanliness wasn't a priority, and body odor was accepted as a natural part of life. People believed that frequent washing could make them more susceptible to germs. The lack of proper hygiene products made life tougher, and settlers had to rely on whatever they could find. The resourcefulness in soap making highlights the challenges of maintaining cleanliness in an era with limited resources. Number 23. Oral health care often meant tooth extraction. In the Wild West, dental care was rudimentary, with problematic teeth often extracted by barbers or blacksmiths using tools resembling pliers. Whiskey served as the only anesthetic, making the procedure excruciatingly painful. Community toothbrushes, if available, were shared, spreading germs and bacteria. Pocket knives were sometimes used to remove stuck food. The lack of proper dental hygiene and care led to widespread dental problems and discomfort. People lived with constant pain, as there were few options for relief. The crude methods often used were more harm than good, reflecting the harsh realities of frontier life where even basic health care was a significant challenge. Number 22. Barbers were often sought out for grooming advice. Barbers in the Wild West were key sources of grooming advice, though their recommendations were often questionable. They suggested various lotions and powders, many of which were ineffective or harmful. Barbers also provided tips on hair and skin care, despite limited resources. Women turned to barbers for beauty routines, seeking guidance in a time when grooming products were scarce. Proper grooming was challenging, with a lack of clean water, soap, and other essentials. Barbers did their best with what was available, but there were limits to what they could achieve. Their role highlights the broader struggle to maintain hygiene and appearance in the harsh conditions of the Wild West. Number 21. Mercury was used to combat syphilis. During a terrifying epidemic of syphilis in the Wild West, people turned to mercury for treatment, despite its grueling side effects like ulcers and kidney failure. Patients applied mercury ointment daily, often for years, suffering severe health consequences. The lack of effective medical treatments left people desperate, willing to endure the suffering caused by mercury if it meant curing the disease. This practice underscores the desperate measures taken in the absence of modern medicine. The use of mercury highlights the harsh realities of frontier healthcare, where people relied on dangerous and unproven methods to combat serious illnesses, often with dire consequences. Number 20. Dust was everywhere. Dust storms and fierce winds made life in the Wild West a constant battle against grime. Dust invaded homes, covered everything, and posed health risks. Finding clear, cold water was a blessing after battling relentless dust all day. Dust was so pervasive that it became a daily struggle, with families and livestock constantly exposed to it. The relentless dust storms added to the hardships of frontier life, making cleanliness nearly impossible. The constant presence of dust highlights the harsh living conditions and the ongoing struggle to maintain even basic hygiene. The scarcity of water further complicated efforts to stay clean, emphasizing the challenging environment of the Wild West. Number 19. Cholera and other diseases ran rampant. Poor sanitation and limited medical knowledge in the Wild West led to frequent outbreaks of diseases like cholera, claiming countless lives. Contaminated water and inadequate hygiene practices were common, devastating both settlers and Native American communities. Cholera outbreaks among migrants were seen as tests of faith, while the disease spread rapidly among Native Americans. Poor living conditions and the use of the same water for multiple purposes exacerbated the spread of illness. The prevalence of disease underscores the severe health challenges of frontier life, where lack of medical resources and sanitation made survival precarious. The frequent disease outbreaks highlights the dire public health conditions and the constant threat to life in the Wild West. Number 18. Live shows were breeding grounds for germs. Live shows like Buffalo Bill's Wild West Show were thrilling but unsanitary. Performers and audiences faced health risks from crowded and dusty conditions, creating a breeding ground for germs. The lack of proper hygiene facilities made it difficult to maintain cleanliness, and the constant travel of performers spread germs from town to town. The excitement of the shows often overshadowed the health risks, but these events were hot spots for disease. The conditions highlight the broader public health challenges of the time, where maintaining hygiene in crowded and mobile environments was nearly impossible. The germ-ridden conditions of live shows underscore the harsh realities of entertainment and hygiene in the Wild West. Number 17. Lard, soap, whiskey, and pencils in women's hair. Women in the Wild West used lard, soap, whiskey, and heated pencils for hair care and styling due to the absence of modern products. These makeshift methods were necessary but far from luxurious. Lard and lye soap were practical but harsh on the hair and skin. Whiskey, mixed with castor oil and lavender, was used for washing hair, while heated pencils served as makeshift curling irons. Women had to be resourceful in their grooming routines, using whatever was available to maintain their appearance. Despite the crude methods, they managed to keep their hair clean and styled. The lack of proper hair care products highlights the ingenuity and adaptability required to maintain personal hygiene and grooming in the harsh conditions. Number 16. Women were generally cleaner than men. Women in the Wild West had slightly better hygiene conditions than men, who often went days without bathing. Cowboys and soldiers typically bathed in streams or rivers, making hygiene a rare luxury. Women, on the other hand, made a daily effort to wash their faces and hands, as described by Sarah Hiernan. Despite limited resources and the challenges of privacy, women managed to maintain a level of cleanliness that was often lacking among their male counterparts. Their efforts to stay clean and presentable were commendable, given the harsh conditions of the Wild West. While men would often skip bathing due to the cold or lack of convenience, women's dedication to hygiene underscore their resilience and adaptability. Number 15. Unbelievable medicines of the Wild West. From alcohol to cocaine, pioneers relied on whatever they had to treat illnesses. With doctors few and far between, people turned to homemade remedies and whatever was available. Alcohol was a common remedy for various ailments, acting as a sedative and pain reliever. Cocaine tooth drops were popular for dental pain, providing temporary relief. These desperate measures highlighted the lack of modern medical care and the dangers of relying on addictive and harmful substances in the Wild West. People often turned to unproven and sometimes dangerous remedies, reflecting the harsh realities of frontier life. The widespread use of such substances underscores the lengths to which people would go to alleviate pain and illness in an era of limited medical knowledge. Number 14. Most men in the Wild West had long and dirty hair. Men's long, dirty hair was a testament to their rough lifestyles. Constantly on the move, they rarely had time for haircuts or washing. Their tangled locks became a symbol of their travels. Famous figures like Wild Bill Hickok and George Armstrong Custer took pride in their long hair, sometimes even scenting it with cinnamon oil. When in town, cowboys indulged in haircuts, shaves, and hot baths. By the late 19th century, shorter hair became more practical and fashionable, but the struggle against dirt and grime remained a daily challenge. The lack of regular grooming made it difficult to maintain a clean appearance, but occasional trips to town allowed for some pampering. This rugged look became synonymous with a frontier spirit, reflecting the harsh and unrelenting nature of life in the Wild West. Number 13. Cowboy bandanas protected against overwhelming smells. Bandanas served as practical accessories, protecting against dust and sun, while also masking unpleasant odors. Cowboys and cowgirls used them to shield their faces from the elements and to block out the stench of outhouses and other foul smells. In a time when personal hygiene was lacking, bandanas were essential for survival. These versatile pieces of cloth helped them navigate the harsh conditions of the Wild West, providing some relief from the constant assault of dirt and grime. Beyond their practical uses, bandanas became a symbol of the rugged frontier lifestyle. The lack of modern conveniences made these simple items invaluable. In a world where cleanliness was a constant struggle, the bandana provided a small but crucial measure of comfort and protection. Number 12. People went to the bathroom in outhouses that smelled horrible. Outhouses were infamous for their stench and bugs. Without modern plumbing, people used corn cobs and grass instead of toilet paper, making trips to the outhouse a truly unpleasant experience. These outdoor sheds, perched over holes in the ground, emitted pungent odors and attracted numerous insects. The lack of sanitation and proper toilet facilities contributed to unsanitary living conditions and potential health risks. Indoor plumbing had made its debut in big cities like New York in 1842, but the Wild West lagged behind, with only 1% of U.S. homes having indoor plumbing by the 1920s. People in the Wild West had to get creative, using corn cobs, torn pages from magazines, and catalogs before toilet paper became widely available in the 1890s. Number 11. Families bathed in the same bathwater. Bathing was a luxury, and families often shared the same bathwater. This practice, known as the Saturday night bath, ensured everyone was clean for church on Sunday, but it also meant bathing in increasingly dirty water. Filling a tub with heated water was labor-intensive, so families bathed one after another in the same water. The lack of clean water and proper bathing facilities made it difficult to maintain good hygiene. Despite the challenges, people made the best of what they had to ensure cleanliness for important occasions. The practice of sharing bathwater highlights the resourcefulness of people in the Wild West, who had to maintain hygiene with limited resources. It wasn't ideal, but it was a necessity in a time when modern conveniences were few and far between. Number 10. Medical practices and amputation. Frontier medicine was often crude and brutal. With limited access to medical supplies and trained doctors, many injuries and illnesses resulted in amputations. Surgeons used saws and knives, with whiskey as the only antiseptic. The risk of infection was high, and many patients didn't survive the ordeal. Additionally, the lack of sterilization and proper wound care meant that even minor surgeries could lead to deadly infections like gangrene. Many patients faced a grim choice: endure the excruciating pain of an operation with little chance of survival, or succumb to their injuries untreated. The desperate conditions highlighted the harsh realities of life and death on the frontier. Medical care was rudimentary at best, and the absence of modern techniques made every injury potentially life-threatening. Number 9. Lead poisoning from poor quality whiskey. Rot gut whiskey was a popular drink in the Wild West, but it was often made with poor quality ingredients and contaminated with lead from old stills. Lead poisoning caused serious health problems, including severe abdominal pain, weakness, and even death. Despite the risks, many people continued to drink it due to the lack of alternatives. This cheap, toxic brew was often the only available source of alcohol, leading many to unknowingly consume harmful amounts of lead. Chronic exposure led to widespread health issues, including neurological damage, which added to the already harsh and unforgiving conditions of frontier life. The consumption of rot gut whiskey reflects the broader struggles of frontier living, where access to safe and quality goods was limited. Number 8. Snake oil salesmen and quack cures. The Wild West was rife with snake oil salesmen who peddled fake cures and miracle elixirs. These quack medicines often contained dangerous ingredients like opium, cocaine, and mercury. People desperate for relief from various ailments would buy these concoctions, only to suffer worse health consequences. The lack of regulation allowed these con men to exploit the vulnerable, often leading to addiction, poisoning, and even death. The widespread presence of these fraudulent remedies highlighted the dire need for effective medical treatments and the desperation of people living in such isolated and medically underserved areas. The prevalence of quack cures underscores the broader challenges of frontier life, where trust in unproven remedies often led to tragic outcomes. Number 7. Grave robbing and body snatching. With medical schools in desperate need of cadavers for dissection and study, grave robbing became a lucrative, albeit creepy, business. Body snatchers would dig up recently buried bodies and sell them to medical institutions. This gruesome practice added to the already eerie atmosphere of the Wild West. Families would sometimes take measures to protect their loved ones' graves, such as placing heavy stones or iron cages over burial sites. The fear of having a relative's body stolen added another layer of anxiety to an already precarious existence, reflecting the often macabre reality of life and death in the frontier days. This practice highlighted the desperate measures taken to advance medical knowledge in a time of limited resources. Number 6. Cannibalism during starvation. During harsh winters and times of extreme scarcity, some settlers resorted to cannibalism to survive. The Donner Party is the most infamous example, where stranded pioneers ate the flesh of deceased companions to stave off starvation. This dark chapter in history left a lasting scar on the collective memory of the Wild West. The desperation and horror faced by these settlers illustrated the extreme challenges and life-or-death decisions that were often part of frontier life. The psychological impact of such acts haunted survivors long after they returned to civilization, a stark reminder of the perils of the American frontier. Cannibalism during starvation highlighted the brutal and unforgiving nature of frontier life, where survival often required unimaginable choices. This grim reality serves as a testament to the severe conditions faced by pioneers and the lengths they would go to endure in the face of extreme adversity. Number 5. Dangerous wildlife encounters. The Wild West was home to dangerous wildlife, including wolves, bears, and mountain lions. These predators posed constant threats to settlers, who often had to defend their homes and livestock. Encounters with these animals could be deadly, adding to the perilous existence of frontier life. Livestock losses could devastate a family's livelihood, and a single encounter with a predator could result in serious injury or death. Settlers had to remain vigilant and prepared to protect themselves and their property, making daily life a constant battle for survival against the natural dangers of the untamed wilderness. Dangerous wildlife encounters highlighted the harsh realities of life on the frontier, where humans and animals often competed for the same resources, leading to frequent and sometimes deadly confrontations. Number 4. Deadly feuds and vigilante justice. Feuds between families or communities could escalate into violent confrontations and bloodshed. Without a strong legal system, vigilante justice was common, leading to lynchings and mob rule. These conflicts often had devastating consequences, leaving a trail of fear and death in their wake. The lack of formal law enforcement meant that individuals took the law into their own hands, often resulting in brutal and indiscriminate violence. Feuds could last for generations, deeply impacting the social fabric of frontier communities and perpetuating cycles of revenge and retribution. The prevalence of vigilante justice reflected the broader struggles of maintaining order in a lawless land. Number 3. Infestation of rodents and vermin. Homes and storage areas were frequently infested with rodents and vermin. Rats and mice would contaminate food supplies and spread diseases like typhus and plague. Efforts to control these pests were often futile, leading to constant battles against these unwelcome invaders. The presence of these vermin not only threatened food security, but also posed significant health risks to settlers. Sanitation measures were primitive at best, and the struggle to maintain a vermin-free home was a daily challenge. The persuasive presence of these pests added another layer of hardship to the already difficult living conditions of the Wild West. Infestations underscored the broader challenges of maintaining hygiene and health in an area of limited resources and knowledge. Number 2. Dangerous mining conditions. Mining for gold and silver was a major draw in the Wild West, but it came with significant risks. Miners faced deadly conditions, including cave-ins, explosions, and toxic gases. Many lost their lives in the pursuit of riches, making mining one of the most dangerous professions of the time. The relentless drive to strike it rich often led miners to take extreme risks, working in unstable and poorly ventilated shafts. The high fatality rate underscored the perilous nature of mining, where the promise of wealth was overshadowed by the constant threat of disaster. Dangerous mining conditions highlighted the harsh realities of frontier life, where economic pursuits often came at the cost of personal safety. Number 1. Haunted locations and ghost stories. The Wild West was filled with stories of haunted locations and ghostly apparitions. Abandoned mines, old forts, and deserted towns were often said to be inhabited by restless spirits. These tales of hauntings added to the eerie and unsettling atmosphere of the frontier, keeping the fear of the unknown alive. Whether fueled by actual events or the fertile imaginations of settlers, these ghost stories provided a supernatural explanation for the often unexplained and tragic events of frontier life. The haunted legends of the Wild West continue to captivate and terrify, a testament to the enduring legacy of its mysterious and often macabre history. These stories reflect the deeper fears and anxieties of a society living on the edge of civilization. The 30 of the most unsettling and creepy discoveries of the Wild West reveal a side of history that is as fascinating as it is frightening. From bizarre health practices to ghastly encounters, these stories shed light on the true grit and darkness of the American frontier. The Wild West was a complex and multifaceted era, filled with both remarkable achievements and unsettling realities. The stories of grit, perseverance, and survival against all odds continue to captivate and inspire us, offering valuable lessons about the resilience of the human spirit. Based on the exploration of the dark secrets of the Wild West, its history, honoring both the triumphs and the tribulations of those who forged a path through the untamed frontier. Their legacy, marked by both heroism and hardship, remains a powerful reminder of the enduring human capacity to overcome even the most daunting challenges. So, what are your thoughts on this? Let us know in the comments below.